This is the Vegan Breakthrough Podcast, episode number 5. My friend, thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. And today our guest is Margaret, an author of YouTube channel ModVegan and a blog modvegan.com. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Sergey. Nice to speak with you today.
Nice to speak with you as well. And can you please tell our listeners more about your YouTube channel? Who is it for? What topics do you cover in your videos?
My name is Margaret, and my video channel on YouTube is ModVegan. I also have a blog of the same name. And I kind of started ModVegan because I felt like most of the information that was out there was really geared towards quite young people who are just starting out in life. And I felt like there was a big gap in the market out there for people that are a little bit more established, professionals, people with families, and also people kind of in the center of veganism, because I think the center is kind of voiceless at the moment, and we need more voices in that center. And ModVegan is looking at modern veganism, veganism for the 21st century, veganism for people, whatever their walk of life, and just trying to create a space for them to learn a little bit about veganism in a very approachable and non-threatening way that just kind of looks at the facts of the matter and does so in a real modern and fresh approach.
You usually use a lot of facts, like you do a lot of research on the subjects that you record videos to, and that's wonderful. So do you have any medical background or something like that?
No, I don't. Actually, my background is in history. So I have a master's degree in history, and I've just kind of used my love of research. I'm someone who loves researching things and learning more, and I've just applied that same approach that I would use for teaching, basically, into my videos on veganism.
Oh, that's great. I wish everyone did like that amount of research before they share their message on YouTube, because maybe some people don't understand how big of an influence they have with their audience. Do you agree?
Yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, there is some misinformation out there, and I think most people who are out there sharing information do mean the best, but it's always good to research things and make sure that you know what you're talking about before you press record, for sure.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Okay, can you share with our audience briefly how you became vegan?
Well, I was actually with one of my friends, a girlfriend of mine who's been vegetarian almost her entire life. And we were at dinner in Vancouver. We were there on a vacation, and we stepped into a place for dinner, and I ordered a duck dish. And I mean, she's vegetarian, but I guess it didn't occur to me that that might be slightly offensive. But I ordered this duck dish, and she really sweetly asked me, that she'd seen people order duck a lot. What was duck like? Why did I enjoy eating duck? And it was actually a really good question. I appreciate that she wasn't really combative, that she actually was curious why I was ordering the duck. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I started talking about it, my mind went back to when I was a kid, one of my cousins, and they raised animals on their farm, but they had ducks. And I remember my cousin was just inseparable from his duck. I mean, he never would have killed this duck or eaten this duck. It had a real personality. And I was talking about, the nutty flavor of the duck from what they eat and things like that. It just suddenly, it completely, something in my mind just shifted, and I realized that there was something wrong about what I was doing. And I actually went straight home after that. And it's funny, the whole walk home was a little bit of a blur because my mind just could not stop thinking about this. And I got back to my hotel room and I spent the whole night watching videos about veganism. So that was kind of that was kind of how it all started for me. And YouTube really was the thing that got me interested in veganism, which is probably why I ended up starting a YouTube channel, just because I realized how influential it could be and how much of an influence you can have on people when you are sharing that information.
Mm-hmm. And how long did the transition process take, like from this evening, from this dinner in Vancouver until you became vegan completely?
Yeah, so that was around, it was at the end of August in 2015, and I went home. I knew I didn't really want to eat meat anymore. I knew I wanted to go vegan, especially after I watched a few videos and really started thinking about it. And I gave myself a couple months to transition. And I think that was important. It was nice too, because I told my family, I told my husband as soon as I got home that this was something that I decided to do. And he was very receptive of it, which was awesome. But it took me until January 1st. So January 1st was the day that I stopped eating dairy and eggs completely. So I was completely vegan, no honey, eggs, all that kind of stuff by January 1st. But I gave myself a couple months because honestly, there are things that are not vegan that it takes you a while to kind of learn what you should and shouldn't be eating, little things like gelatin and stuff like that. And I think rather than going crazy all at once, it's helpful sometimes just to learn what those things are and give yourself time to get informed and know what you're doing.
So now it's been since January 1st, 2016. So it's been a year and a half.
Yes.
And what about your husband? Did he become a vegan too?
He did. Wow. He and my daughters as well. I have one daughter who's a little bit kind of semi-vegetarian, and that's really important to me. I think it's important to let the people in your life make decisions for themselves. But my kids are one of them is very firmly vegan. One is very strictly vegetarian. She does sometimes still eat milk products. I think mostly because she just doesn't. She's not quite ready yet to make those decisions. But they are very much on board. And it took my husband a little while, it took my family a little while. They've been vegan for about a year. And it's been a really neat process to go through as a family.
What was your kid's reaction, your daughter's reaction to it? Did she start asking you more questions? Why vegan and everything? Right? Absolutely.
We decided, my husband and I together, that we were going to have a vegan home, or at least starting out a vegetarian home and later on a vegan home. But we just kind of stopped buying any animal products. And the kids were pretty comfortable with it. I had my youngest daughter never liked meat to begin with, so she was relieved. She also hated cheese, so it was really easy for her. The youngest one had a really easy time with it because she'd never liked, butter, cheese, and stuff. So it was easiest for her. And for my other daughter, a little more of a challenge, but she definitely understands it now, and they both are very much on board with it. And of course, had lots of questions. They actually both really like watching my videos, which is one reason I do try to make my videos family friendly so that kids can watch them and everything like that. And it's been great for them as well.
Great. Okay, so for this year and a half, what was the hardest thing for you about being vegan?
The hardest part for me, and I think for most vegans, is kind of the social pressure that you get, the feelings of isolation. And of course, that starts at home. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's been so helpful. I think the most difficult moment for me was seeing my family eating the animal products that they still ate. And it's so nice now that our home is a place that just doesn't have any animal products in it. That really helps a lot. And yeah, that was the hardest thing for me at first, was just a little bit of a fear that my family wouldn't join me. And fortunately that was allayed over time, but that was the hardest thing. And I think it is for most people.
Yes. And also I know that many vegans, or people who want to make a transition to veganism, they are afraid that they will lose their friends. Did you lose any friends?
No, I haven't. And it's been interesting. I mean, some of my best friends are lifelong vegetarians, which helps a lot. So now I'm finally on their side. I think they're relieved that finally we get to go to places that don't serve animal products and things like that. They really like that. So that's been good. And my friends that are meat eaters, it's been fine. I never have gone to the point. I know some people, have decided that they won't eat with people who are eating meat. And I think that's missing out on a big opportunity personally. I think that if you can especially because that's how I became vegan, was from someone just asking me a question when I was at dinner, one of my good friends. So I do think that that's really important, to remain open to them, to be there to answer questions. And it ends up being a positive thing. If you have a positive attitude, you usually have positive outcomes. And I'm a big believer in that.
There is a activists group, Direct Action Everywhere, and they have their, I don't know, what's the name of it, like a pledge or something?
The Liberation Pledge, yeah.
Liberation Pledge. So it basically is about not sitting at the same table where someone is eating meat, right? Or some animal products.
And it's been interesting. I know Wayne Seung, the founder of Direct Action Everywhere, addressed that recently in a video that he did on YouTube with James Aspey, who's another young activist. And they were talking about it because they both have very different views on that. But I know Wayne and Direct Action Everywhere, that's something that they promote. But a lot of it is because they know that some vegans get really upset when they're around people who are eating animal products. And it depends on who you are as a person. If it brings you into a negative space and you're not really able to overcome that, then I think that making a pledge like the Liberation Pledge makes sense. But if you can stay in that place of positivity and just be a friendly voice for veganism, I think it works out better to do that, to just be with people and eat with people. And as an alternative, I kind of promote the idea of a compassionate home. I think that's something that vegans, especially if your family is vegan, make your home a vegan place. And you can let guests know that when they come to your home, that you'll eat vegan food, that you'll provide that for them, that it's going to be delicious, that they're going to have a great time. And then when you go to their house, they can know that you're vegan. You won't be eating animal products, but they don't have to have that extra pressure that they need to necessarily provide only vegan food when you go to their home.
Yes, I agree. And I also watched that video with James, and I liked what James said, that if you refuse to sit at the same table with meat eaters, you, in a sense, lose an opportunity to share your message about veganism, right?
Absolutely. And it makes it really hard for professionals as well. You know, my husband's a professional. He goes to lots of conferences, have lots of events with people. He's eating dinner with people all the time who aren't vegan. And so for him, he finds like people just ask him the question because they're curious, because he's always, you know, ordering a vegan meal. And it ends up being something that is a great topic of conversation for them. And because he's really good at talking about it, they come away with a positive vision of veganism and an idea for the future, and usually are quite curious about it.
Another question that I have, what do you like about the modern vegan movement, especially on YouTube? And what do you think we can improve as a vegan community on YouTube and in social media?
I think one of the best things is, because isolation is a huge problem for people, if your family's not vegan, it's lovely to know that there's other people out there who are. And I really would encourage people to find those positive voices, to find people that they can resonate with. And YouTube is fantastic for that. There's some really great people out there. As you mentioned before, I think one of the big failings on YouTube can be, you know, part of it is the negativity, but also part of it is the poor research. I think that sometimes people promise far more than they need to. They, you know, that veganism will cure all your problems, that you can be the greatest athlete ever. I did a video a while ago about
I didn't
PR, you know. Sometimes you're vegan and you don't have your personal best. I had my worst race ever a while ago. It was just a bad day and I had an injury, but still, it's important to know that it's not going to be all sunshine and roses, that there are always will be challenges in life, whether you're vegan or not. And I think that balance is an important thing to bring in as a perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And what do you think about this? I would call it vegan drama. I just recently, maybe 3-4 months ago, I started watching more and more different videos from different activists on YouTube. And I got immersed in this vegan drama where people are criticizing each other, talking bad things about each other, trying to sue each other, insulting each other. And of course, like, it creates attention. It gets more views. But does it promote veganism? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't really think it does. I mean, you've seen, it's hard to avoid a little bit. Sometimes you do want to address the drama. I do think that it can be a big distraction on the other hand as well. It's important to talk about controversial issues and discuss things that are important. I mean, to me, some of the things that are important to me may not be important to everyone. And I've learned recently, I had a video a while ago that was a bit more controversial that got picked up, and it was kind of a surprise to me. I ended up actually just taking it off my channel because I realized that it wasn't really contributing, I don't think, to the vegan movement. And sometimes those controversies, YouTube is not the best place to address them, because if you want an adult conversation, YouTube isn't always the best place to have that kind of conversation. I've kind of learned over time, if you want to be addressing subtleties of politics and things like that, YouTube can be not the best place to talk about those things if you really want to have a higher level conversation. So that's always something to keep in mind.
Yes, I agree. And I think if you really want to address some issues, or I don't know, even confront some other vegan activist on YouTube or a vegan blogger, I think it is very important to do it in a respectful manner.
Absolutely. I mean, the no name calling, certainly, and making it clear that if you have an issue with someone, that it's over that issue, not the person. I have made a few videos talking about issues that I see with people, but I do want it to be very clear to my viewers that it's never really about the person. It's about the ideas. I think I'm a big believer that we need to be focusing on ideas and not people. And that's the way that we're really going to move the movement forward. Just
recently, I watched your video. It's called "You Don't Have to Be a Perfect Activist." There is an idea of which form of vegan activism is the most efficient. And you said that you feel that vegan activism should not necessarily be about being the most efficient, correct?
Yes, because I think at this point, we don't genuinely know. There's a lot of people who want to find that out. There's some groups I've supported Faunalytics in the past. They're a group that looks at, data sets and tries to determine what's really working for vegans and for veganism from those data sets. But I do think that we can abuse that information in a way that isn't necessarily helpful because we don't genuinely know at this point. Veganism is still fairly new as a movement, and even activism in general. I mean, if we knew what was the most effective way, then everyone would already be vegan anyway.
Right.
So I think it's important at this point to do what works for you. And that's why in that video, I support groups like Direct Action Everywhere, because for one thing, they're nonviolent. And I think that's a real critical thing. I think all vegan organizations should have nonviolence as a basis of their message, because to me, that's kind of the basics of veganism, right? It's a nonviolent philosophy. And I think that's important. But beyond that, I think it really depends on what resonates with you as a person. If it gets you plugged in and feeling involved and not feeling isolated, then that's already accomplishing a great deal.
Mm-hmm. So you think overall it is more important just to be plugged in the movement, to be involved, to maintain the connection with other vegans, right?
Yes, absolutely. And whatever organization helps you to do that in a positive way that makes you feel better about being vegan, better as a person, and lets you feel more involved, I think that's always a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And also in that video and in other videos, I heard you cite the statistic that about 2% of the current world's population is either vegan or vegetarian, but about 10% is a former vegan or vegetarian. And you said that the problem for veganism is retention, not conversion. Can you tell us more? Why do you think this way?
Well, I think people go vegan for all sorts of different reasons. And obviously, it's going to depend. I know people who've gone vegan for their health and have remained vegan, but also people who try veganism for their health and are no longer vegan. And the same goes for ethics as well. I think ethics is a bit more of a stronger, longer lasting connection with veganism. But even that isn't a guaranteed thing if you feel isolated. And so I do think a big part of our focus needs to be on helping people to integrate with the vegan community, to be able to explain their dietary decisions, their ethical beliefs with their families as well.
And do you consider ethical veganism as a form of religion?
No, I don't. I did make a video about that, about whether veganism was a religion. I don't think it's a religion. I think it's an ethical belief. It's the belief that compassion is the best philosophy. And that, I think, is something that people, regardless of their religious persuasion, I don't happen to be religious, but I do believe deeply that ethics is kind of the basis of society. And like Gandhi said, the greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. And I do believe that deeply. I think that the way to move forward as a society, we don't need to eat animals anymore. And it's turned out that actually happens to be the best thing for our health and the best thing for the planet. And I think that that's the direction that society is headed in. And I want to be a part of that.
But at the same time, do you think vegan organizations will benefit if they will be considered as nonprofit or organizations, or will be treated the same way as churches and mosques are being treated?
I think that would be lovely. Certainly when it comes to some political organizations and things like that, and just being able to lobby effectively. Nonprofits can't really lobby effectively, but religions can, and that is problematic. But that's more of an issue to do with politics than it is necessarily with veganism. But I do think that just kind of has to do with the politics in our individual countries. Here in Canada, it is a little bit difficult if you are just a nonprofit to lobby with any effectiveness, unless you're either a political party or a religion. And so that is an issue. I don't necessarily think that veganism needs to be seen as a religion. Certainly, I don't want it to be seen as a religion, but I do wish that we were able to be a little bit more effective as advocates within our political system.
Yes, and during this year and a half or so that you have been running your channel, what was the most surprising comments or reaction that you received from your viewers?
I think one of the most surprising thing is the fact that you don't always recognize it, but I think a lot of people want to be vegan and don't feel that they're able to. And I think realizing that and trying to provide people with ways to be as vegan as they can be in their present circumstances, or even where they are at this moment in their minds mentally, is really important. And I've realized that not isolating those people from the vegan movement is important as well.
What are the best vegan books that you've read, or maybe the books that touched you the most?
Oh my goodness, there are so many. I do find sometimes my favorite books are the ones that are not specifically vegan, but just teach us more about animals. I've done a couple of reviews. Franz de Waal's book, Are We Smart Enough to Know How Smart Animals Are? That's a great book. I recently read Animal Wise by Virginia Morell. That was a great book as well. Just kind of talking about how animals' minds work, and it really challenges our perception of animals. Those are great books. And of course, another one of my favorite books is, because I'm a runner, I loved Eat and Run by Scott Jurek. Mm-hmm. And I read that way before I ever was vegan, but he really does address veganism in a very friendly way and incorporates it into his life story because he is a vegan. So that's a great book as well. If you're an athlete, that's a fantastic book to read.
Okay, and you live in Calgary. Do you engage in vegan groups or vegan activities in Calgary?
I've been going to the vegan potlucks, not so much lately, but I do like to go to the vegan potlucks that we have here in Calgary. Those are a great opportunity. I do wish we had a few more, and I think that the Veg Fest Calgary is going to be, that group has really been good about trying to kind of switch around the way that vegans connect with each other here in Calgary. Mm-hmm. For me personally, because I'm not a big... I cook, I'm a good cook, but I don't necessarily enjoy it that much. Sometimes I just want to go sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk to people about veganism. Mm-hmm. I want to see more opportunities for doing things like that, but I'm really excited for Veg Fest, that there's now specifically vegan festival that's going on this fall. And we're going to be getting some more plant-based businesses, and new ones are opening all the time. We've got Veg-In. I don't know if have you gone to Veg-In?
No, not yet.
Downtown, it's fantastic. It's a really nice, just quick place to pick up a meal. I absolutely love it. And there's a new vegan shop that's going to be opening up called the Grinning Goat that I can't wait for that. That's so exciting.
Yeah, me too. Your channel, your YouTube channel, is a great example that you don't have to be a preacher, or you don't have to go and do some radical things in the streets. Do you agree with that, that you don't have to do that and you still can promote your message about veganism?
Absolutely. And I think, I see how many people my husband has just talked to about being vegan through his work and everything like that. There's lots of ways to connect with people that don't necessarily involve, knocking on doors and handing out pamphlets. There's a lot of ways that we can share our lifestyle and our ethical beliefs with other people without, being directly involved in street activism and things like that. I think those things are great, and it's wonderful when people get involved in that. Absolutely. But there are other ways to become involved as well. And we should all be looking for the thing that kind of suits us best. You don't want to be asking people who are extremely introverted to go out and hand pamphlets out to people, because it's just not going to work for them. So we just all need to find the thing that works best with whom we are, and really share ourselves with people in the way that works best for us.
Great. Margaret, how do you feel about the plagiarism in the vegan movement? Do you think vegan movement should be an open source movement? How do you feel when some people accuse other vegan columnists of using their content, or sometimes, as they say, stealing their content?
Well, certainly I know people I think most people who really care about veganism don't mind if you take their content and share it. I certainly don't. I certainly know Gary Yourofsky wouldn't have a problem with that. I know that it's important to share each other's ideas. In my belief, I think that veganism, as I've said before, it's an open source movement. We should be sharing information as much as we can, and sharing people's videos and things like that. That is one way to do it. Nobody really likes it if you re-upload their content so that you can make money and things like that. That's a bit of a line to not cross. But other than that, I think it's great to be sharing other people's work. And what you're doing as well, a podcast and things like that. There's so many different ways to share veganism with people, and you just have to find the thing that works best for you, I think.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. Margaret, can you share a piece of guidance to people who want to try vegan diet, vegan lifestyle, but afraid that it will be too difficult, too inconvenient for them?
Well, one of the things that I always say is that when you're feeling awful about how dark and powerless the world is, like when you feel powerless, when the world feels dark, you can make a choice 3 times a day to vote for a kinder future. When you make those, and for me, it's probably more like 6 times a day, but every time you're putting food on your plate, you can choose what kind of food you're going to be eating. And that's a wonderful first step. And I think before you think about becoming 100% vegan, before you think about going out and doing street activism or anything like that, when you're just not sure, try to make those kinder choices. Make the best decision you can in this moment, and don't worry about the future. Just make the best decision that you can now with the information you have. As Maya Angelou says, when you know better, do better. And that's what I think we can all do, no matter what place in life we're in.
Mm-hmm. And can you share the best way people can connect with you?
The best way is through my video channel, ModVegan, on YouTube. I'm also ModVegan.com. You can check out my blog on Facebook, ModVegan. Check it out. And I would love to hear from you guys. I also have a gift for your listeners. If you go to ModVegan.com/veganbreakthrough, I'm going to have a guide there for your listeners on modern veganism and just a quick guide to going vegan.
Wonderful. Margaret, thank you so much for coming for this interview. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Sergey. It was lovely to speak with you.
My friend, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you found value in today's episode. If there was anything we mentioned and you missed it, don't worry about it. We take all the notes. Simply visit veganbreakthrough.com/5 to see the show notes page. And again, I appreciate you being with me on this journey. Animals need our help. Let's make this world vegan. Bye, my friend.